Welcome, everyone. So this is Unit 2. Can we please just have we start? We don't want to sit here till too late. Let's try to make this work today. All right. So, yeah, this is Unit 2. We are yesterday what we focused mostly on is the overview of basically what we are going to what we are doing today and tomorrow. There's also we also went in more detail with regards to management itself. Okay, so we are going to focus on the management process and function. So more of yesterday, but more depth. Okay, that's important. So that's basically our focus. Where is the mouse? We need to have the mouse. There we go. Right. Okay. So you'll see these outcomes, like I said to you yesterday, they are sort of important. So at the end of this unit, you should be able to, clarify the management process. Okay, introduce a concept of general management and management. Also planning, leading, organizing, and control, which we did last night. You must be able to distinguish between management and the management tasks that constitute the support activities of the value chain and demonstrate an understanding of the 4 management tasks. How do we demonstrate understanding? That's where our case studies come in. Okay. So you will demonstrate it via analyzing the thing. So you analyze the case, the question will give you basically the lens of what is required to analyze the case. Okay. So that is in itself how you will demonstrate it. Distinguish between general management and the management tasks that constitute the support activities of the value chain. And then we can start with tonight. So what is general management? That is, who are the general managers in an organization? What do they manage? Everything? We said that. I can hear you. Yeah. So yeah, so you get your it's more top level management. Okay, just below executive level, you normally get general management. So we spoke about that yesterday. It's more about the functions. So you would have someone managing HR and all that. Those would be your general management at that level. Okay. So when an organization has its own purpose, the provision of goods and services for commercial or profitability purposes, or whether it is a sports club or government department, organizations need to be managed according to similar principles, namely to use resources to generate value for stakeholders. Now, we spoke a lot about the resources. The resources is, man, machine, money like capital, land. So those are the 4 core resources, or 4 core resources of any organization. Okay. With technology, do you think it is possible to have an organization without land?
Yes.
It depends on. Yes, it does, but it is possible. So yes, it depends. So if you want to farm, you might need land, but many digital organizations don't need land. Many service-related organizations, in most cases, don't need land. But if you want an office building, you don't really need that much land because you can do high-rise. So land is not so when the theories was thought out of was at the time when they didn't do high-rise buildings that much, they did, but you would manufacture. You needed space to manufacture. Manufacturing was the, and agriculture was the industries of the time. Services wasn't that much there. So we also need to understand the context where these things come from. Then we get man. Soon we will talk more about machines than man because of automation. So that becomes more and more important. You would eventually not be able to have, and it's already like that. You can't run a company if you don't have at least computers. 20 years ago, it was possible to run a company, and there are still companies running without computers, but not really. At least the most primitive business have at least got a cell phone. They've got their own. So in terms of resources, those four. Some resources become more and more important at the time, and others less important, and it depends on what business. Now, let's talk about farming quickly. Farming is an interesting thing, and it's got to do with technology as well. In China, they've got, can't remember exactly Shanghai or which city, but I think, I saw it last year, wasn't it? China has, I think it is, it's a building in one of their cities. Maybe it's got more, but where they do farming inside the building, a high-rise building. Pig farming, can you believe it? Pig farming. So those pigs would go up and down with lifts and things like that, heavy-duty lifts, of course. So they have utilized space very well. I think they produce millions and millions of pigs per month out of that small land use. And a very interesting concept. I don't know why we are not looking at that in other countries, but that's a very, very interesting concept. You see, it's like that. And they are actually well cared for as well there. Then the point is really technology. Technology affects the resources. Okay, so it affects how the resources are deployed. So technology is the key thing. Capital. The thing about capital is a very interesting one as well. So one would think or question, why does someone will invest in a company if they can start their own for almost nothing? Okay. And it's the reason why people will pay for companies is market share. Market share is a key component. So once you've got market share, that's one of the key metrics for value in a company. So when you hear about mergers and acquisitions, that is because they buy the competition out in order to get more market share. That's the fastest way to increase market share. Okay, so that is key to understand about the role of capital in today's business. But you can literally lie in a bed anywhere in the world and start a business in any other country. You don't have to be even in that country with no money because of the internet. So even the internet has brought down the need for capital. Capital is only necessary for heavy industry and things that are highly innovative concepts or prototypes of business products in businesses that needs to be funded and pushed into market fast. Okay, so if you need to get to the market fast, yes, you need money. If it's not that necessary and you can grow organically and you can retain all the shareholding by not asking other people for money, then you can do it with less money. The moment you the earlier ask for money or capital from other people, the less you own of the business. The later you can postpone that, the more shareholding you will have. Basically how it works. There are other ways also for funding its loans, but of course, early stage startups don't necessarily get loans, they get investors. Okay. So that is about the capital. So you've got all of that, and that needs to be managed well. If you lose that money, it's a problem. If you lose if you misuse the resources or do not manage it well, you've got a problem. So that's the real role of general management. So although management principles are very similar, each organization is unique in the combination of its aims, objectives, access to resources, target markets, competitive environment, and business strategy. Very important is how unique they are. So you might even in the same industry, the organizations have different connections, or the people who started or are in that organization, and just those connections change the way that they operate as well, or utilize resources. So let's describe general management. So the universal landscape that shapes competition for modern business consists of globalization. We spoke a lot about that yesterday. Technological change. I've just told you how technology changed just on a resource base for companies, how some resources become more important, others less. And then knowledge management and innovation, those things are very important. So with even these slides were created before last year's AI wave, and it's all about innovation. Innovation is a key thing in business. So if people or competitors come with other innovation, new innovations, that can outsmart your business. So you need to take note of that. One thing that's very interesting is this case of the please call me guy. We all know the please call me guy. What is that case really about? Is it about innovation? Or is it about something else, for example? So, because there's a problem that Vodacom, or a mistake Vodacom made there. What is that mistake? If you're a large organization, and you do this, you can put whole organization in jeopardy. You know what is really the case about? Is it about the innovation? Was it his idea? Let's start there. The answer is no. MTN had a patent a year before the time. Go and read the court documents. It's not about the idea itself. It's about the promise of payment. This guy went to his manager, the stuff you study now, his manager, and said, "Hi, I've got a brilliant idea." He never did any coding. He can't code. He doesn't have the technical ability to make the idea work. Again, read it. So the court case is not about the if it was about the patent, it would have failed, because MTN had the patent. You can go and read. They let it slide to 2005 or 6 or something like that, or expire. But they had a patent for it, for the same, exactly that technology. But the manager said they will compensate it. There's the promise. It's about the promise. Yeah. And in our law, in our legal system, if you don't have to have a written contract, you know that. So that was a verbal contract. If we implement it, we will compensate you for the idea. One manager has put the whole company about 15 years ago at risk because of the promise. Think about that. How many jobs will get lost if that company needs to pay that money? Nobody's thinking about that, but that I don't read it. I mean, if you think of the profit margins we shared, large companies have like 10% or whatever. Maybe these cell phone companies have more, you know. But that will put a huge dent into the competitiveness of that company in the country. Me and you will pay more for airtime. That's a consequence. Really, someone's going to pay for it. Who's going to pay for it? Me and you is going to pay for it eventually, because competition will, demand and supply. The supply will go down, demand will stay or keep on increasing like it does. Price will go up. So me and you is going to pay for it. That's how market equilibriums work. So when we work with these things, we have to be very, 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 very careful. Managing the company's resources, you have to be very careful. And that's basically what. So if you have the mandate to make agreements in a company, you make the wrong agreement, even verbally, you've got a problem. You see, well, the company will have a problem. So we'll briefly look into each of these aspects today. Okay, the first one, globalization. Those who are online, you are welcome to ask questions. I think I will see it. Yeah, I should be able to see it. So you can type your question, or you can also unmute yourself. And yeah. So globalization, managing the global environment means keeping up with innovation, but also dealing with change. Okay? Because everybody has, not everybody, but as the other companies come up with new innovation, new ideas, new things, even not in your own industry, that can cause change in your industry. So what I said, not even in your own industry, that can cause change. This change you need to deal with. So you either need to become more and more competitive, or whatever the case may be. So the business environment today clearly involves global competition. So Amazon is a big challenge to local business. Okay. The time I made these slides was before Amazon started in South Africa, and already I predicted that. These slides was done like 2 years ago. Okay. This specific slide. And I already predicted there that Amazon is going to bring a come with challenge. What I did 2 years ago is they calculated in the pricing the import duties that you would pay. And you would pay them, and you would not need to pay the import duties when it comes into the country. So it's almost like a seamless experience, almost like as if you would order locally. In that way, they identified the demand in the country because more and more people ordered online from Amazon. And now they are here. It took them 2 years. That's fast. For a big company, that's very fast. How many times have we heard of things that companies will do and then it doesn't really realize? How many times? We hear things, they need to only talk. That's implementation. So South African businesses have access to skills from all over the world. And the skills of South African citizens may be in demand anywhere in the world. This I said pre-COVID. And COVID happened. Because of the internet. And during COVID and just after COVID, a lot of South Africans are working from home. And you can read just the SARS, how they now want that, because they do some tax. So those people actually should pay tax, but now they want to make it those companies that employ people from here a problem for them. That's going to be a problem because what there's something else that I haven't figured out yet. And that is, what if I have a company, or your company employs someone from another country that doesn't have pay-as-you-earn? What does that mean? That person is cheaper. It's about half the price. About, depending on what the skill is. So you compete with that person now. That's what it means. So we can start a company in South Africa, employ people from another country to do the same work at half the price because of tax. I don't have to pay them tax because they don't live here. And they don't pay tax in that country. It's like we talk about, this is creativity. This is being creative with the systems around you, understanding how the systems operate, and think, oh, okay, so I can get kind of someone better than, so then we have got higher unemployment here. So therefore, the higher the tax rates, the lower the employment will be. Go and look at our unemployment rate and correlate it with the tax rates. And you will actually see that before remote work was a thing, it already correlates. Why is that? That's something you need to think of as managers, because you try to get people to do the work. You've got a choice. And people who employ you also have a choice. Remember that. The choices looks like this. Do I employ someone that lives in another country? If this work can be done remotely, can I employ someone that lives in another country? But that's still a problem because people get sick and take leave and things. So they will say, okay, is there a software that can do the work? No, there isn't. Is there someone in another country? No, there is not. Okay, let's look local. In that order. How does that sound? For your job. That is the real things that we don't see so you won't realize this. If you just accept the world, you should question the world. That's what I'm trying to say. That will give you the ability to analyze the world, to question the world. Start questioning it, you'll analyze it, and then you'll start looking at the macro environment, like I try to help you to do so. Okay. So global business environment is made up of economic trading blocks and regional development associations, like the SADC region and things like that. Okay. European Union is a block. So there are these blocks like BRICS. BRICS is not really a block. It will probably become one, but it's not geographically in one place. The blocks here is referred to as geographically one place. But because we deal with less and less physical goods, the blocks things geographically might become less important, and the BRICS type of model where you've got countries all over where they work together, that kind of block might become more important. So there are 3 important trading blocks that managers in South Africa have to be aware of, and these are the SADC, Sub-Saharan Africa, and then BRICS. So those are blocks. Technological change. So it will, we look at Airbnb. AI is now a very big thing. I am involved with AI technologies quite a lot, and I can automate quite a bit of work. So one of the things I will do is the test that you write. I have created a system that can mark it, but it also gives feedback. I will look at it and I'll check it, but you can also contest it. Yeah, but it is a bit more accurate than the normal lecturer. That's the thing. Because you work with something of 150 IQ. And that is key to understand. Okay. So I created that system. So therefore, you know, that's one job that is augmented with technology now. And I'm not the only one who did it. There are about 4, 5, or 6 other flavors of that. Okay. By the way, I've got permission to use it. By the dean and so on. Yeah. It's not a secret. Let me just see. Oh yeah. As you can see, what does technology really do? What is the, I want to ask you, what do you think is the role of technology? Is technology a good thing or a bad thing? I like that, it's both. When is it a good thing? When you benefit from it. When who benefits from it? Everyone must benefit from it. Who is everyone? Who's everyone? Say again. Companies, students, yeah, governments, yeah. But if it's only government, it's a problem. If it's only a company, it's a problem. If it's only students, it's a problem. You have me? That's a very important thing. It has to be, the benefit has to be for more than one. So the marketing thing, I benefit, but you benefit. You benefit 2 ways. You will get your market stuff faster. That's a huge benefit because then you can remember. The second thing is you get feedback faster and a bit more elaborate feedback, not just like a mark feedback. You get the writing there that says this. Okay. There might be a third way to benefit, but those 2 is already very good. Okay. So if you look at Airbnb, there's okay. So the back part is all technologies causes something not to benefit. Remember that. So there's always a bad thing about the same technology. So who does not benefit, for example, with Airbnb? Say again? No, not really, actually. It is the regulated, it's a regulated hospitality industry. Well, hotels and those, they don't benefit from this, but they get more competition. Unfair, they say it's unfair competition that all these small guys can actually compete against them. I say I love it. I mean, normally small guys can't compete. Now they complain that the small guys are competitive. That's awesome. Why you complain? Okay, the laws must apply to both equally. I agree with that. So they can do it. Otherwise, they can compete on price unfairly, right? So yes, I agree with that. So I think they started to change the law on this, because if you only rent out your bedroom and share or whatever in your house, there was no law for you. The law was not there wasn't nobody when they created that law in their sane minds thought someone's going to rent out their bedroom or couch. That's how it started for tourism accommodation. Yeah. The same with driverless cars, some will not benefit, but the greater good should. And online education. Here we've got people online. This is online education. What they benefit, they can be anywhere, they don't miss the class. They can sit in Cape Town, so that's a benefit. I don't benefit that much because I have all these systems set up. So it takes a bit of time to get it set up. Everything needs to work. So I don't really benefit that much from it. But I do in the end. It's for me, it's actually the same but other lecturers, it might not be because they're not that good with technology. Not everybody is good with technology. Why is this future? Can anybody tell me? New technological developments can make an established industry organization actually almost overnight. Nearly the taxi industry, due to Uber, was obsolete. But they fought back physically, as you can see. And then they started creating applications. So if you think about it, the taxi industry that's an interesting case because the taxi industry have for 50 years plus, maybe more than 50 years, 50, 60 years, ran the same business model. Okay. And people didn't trust him. You know what? Before Uber, I never used a taxi. Never. With Uber, they created a system I could trust. And I could access, because if I land with an airplane in a country and I want a taxi, I know where to get it. I have the app on my phone. But when I land in a country and I've got all these people haggling me when I exit the airport, which normally happens, it irritates me. I don't like it. It's like, I don't, no, I avoid you. I don't want that. Nobody wants that. They fight over you. So that's a problem. Whereas with the app, it takes away that as well. So I just want to get it. And those guys don't like that because they want to fight over you. I don't want to be fought over. So there's a problem, you see. So it's not good for them. Okay. Contemporary organization must have a standing plan to adapt in time to changes in technology that will affect their organization. So you've got to adapt in time. Organizations get so, this is how things are done. This is how things have been done. Will continue to do it this way. Even though there are problems, with the idea. Let me just, even though there might be problems with the ideas, or there might be a better way of doing it, but they know there are problems, but they live with the problems because that's how things are. That is a very good indicator, especially if you live with that problem in today's world for more than 5 years. I would say that, you got to solve that problem. There might be new technology that might help you. I can't refer to the case because I've signed non-disclosure agreements, but it's a very common product that for more than 50, 60 years, they're used to make it in a certain way. They have never looked at, they've built complex technologies around making it that way. My 11-year-old son, he's 12-year-old son. My wife will kill me now, but anyway, my 12-year-old son said, but why can't they just do that? And I thought, why the hell did I not think about it? That's like makes sense. Okay, it's like, why not? Why did I not ask that question to them? Here comes a 12-year-old to tell me the question I should have asked the time. You get what I'm saying? Because he's got creativity, he's got no legacy in his mind. He just thought that's how it should have been done. That makes sense to him, right? It's like, I thought, yeah, but it's stupid. Why didn't nobody ask that question? It will solve their problems, okay? To get that right, you need to be quite an engineer. Let me put you that, because there's a complexity even with this idea. But it might be simpler and faster than the way they currently do it. It will cut down in the production process 12 steps to 3 steps, 12 hours to 3 hours. Just the thing he said. That's the question he asked. If it works, why don't they have someone that thinks about the problems? And that's what I'm trying to show you. You have to adapt to the times changes. If you sit with for 60 years with the same problem, and the product is very common, okay, that I refer to. I can't say the product, but right around the world, there are manufacturers making that product, right around the world. So it's made in volumes. So the question is, when will someone come with the idea to actually make it better? Make it cheaper, just by changing the way of thinking. Owners and managers of organizations must keep abreast of new developments in technology. Exactly because of this reason and what I explained yesterday about competitiveness, because they know that technology can give an organization a competitive edge over its competitors, or a disadvantage if they struggle to adapt to the new customer experiences or preferences. So rapid changes in technology has resulted in more agile organizations. An agile organization is an organization that can change fast. The biggest mistake you can make is to have a startup. If you create a company from the start and it's not agile. Big companies, that's one of the worst problems. The old business model of all this bureaucracy is a problem. It is really a problem today. The stuff that I showed you, when people are talk to each other in organization, is a real thing. You know, the functions, and they said they actually need to talk, but they are set up in a way that they don't, that makes it difficult for these guys to talk. That is a problem. That's a really big problem. That takes away agility. So the mere size of an organization reduces the agility. There's a company in China that figured this one out. And what they did is they broke down a company to 1,000 smaller companies, 1,000 teams, like 50 people and less. And those people were able to talk, I think, and there was light. And there was light. You were almost falling asleep. I should get used to it. It's almost like day night. Right. Organizations, sorry, they must see me on the close your eyes. So organizations are good at gathering information about the customers, are also called knowledge organizations. Today, it is very easy to gather that information, but we've got, in response, the POPI Act, and those kind of things that we need to consider. In South Africa, until I see that the last couple of weeks, and nobody has enforced the law, but now it's starting to be enforced. A good knowledge system allows access to the organization's resources, such as downloading their bills, making appointments, or ordering online. So that is for the customers. Information is so freely available, driven by technological advances. Availability of cell phones, because the fact that everybody has a cell phone can take us quite far in with your business or with the business that you manage. You must always think, how can we use mobile technologies with our customers and all of that. You know, what is the percentage of users nowadays that use this to browse the internet, the mobile phones? What do you think is the percentage of people nowadays? In comparison to laptops or desktop computers? Small screen, big screen. Which one is more? This one or that one? This one. But okay, so in percentage wise, what do you think is this about? About there, about 18 there. It's a lot. So if your website of your company, and there's many still like that, you battle to sort of work with the website on your phone. I'm not even talking about having an app. Just working with that website, because we shouldn't have an app for everything. Then that's a problem. So the other thing about information, have you seen that the CIPC, their website has been hacked? The government's website, CIPC, where all the registration of the companies are. Have you seen that? That's a problem. You know what's on that website? What information? You want to know? So it is the directors of the companies with their ID numbers, with their addresses where they live. That's what's on there. Plus unencrypted credit card details, unencrypted passwords. So the person who designed that website needs to be sued, because the last time we created systems where the password, you do not encrypt it in a database, was before the internet. That's 1980. Up to 1989, around there. After that, it was hugely unacceptable. You encrypt the password. That, I think, is very unacceptable. So, again, if you're a manager and you need to check these things. The service providers you get in, that's money you pay them, good money. Are they designing these systems correctly? Technology is one of the resources. You can't compromise the data of your customers. You can't compromise. That is sensitive information. There is scary stuff they can do with that information, besides taking money. Besides that, if you know some of that information, then there are certain people who will be kidnapped for ransom. You know that. That's a problem. Innovation goes virtually hand in hand with managing knowledge. Very important. So in organization, this means that the knowledge that people have there, the organization needs to have a way to retain that knowledge. Now with AI, that makes it very interesting, because now it's possible that if we can record all the conversations, not today, we can do it today, but I think in the near future, it's going to be possible to record everything that you do in the organization. So if you discuss the meeting, whatever, and there would be, AI can collect that information, interpret it, save it into a database. And that would be a very interesting way to, to keep the knowledge in the organization. So if you leave, we can always get back that knowledge in that way, by querying this super database. That would be very interesting. Scary for some, because we are human beings. We want to make ourselves, unmissable in the organization. Yeah. So, the most obvious reason for innovation is that faster or more efficient product, service, or business processes may make one competitor more efficient than the other. This is very important. We spoke a lot about it yesterday. The macro environment is impossible for a business or its managers to control. You can't control it. However, I would just say the possibility is not so much. It is possible. It's difficult. So there are things that you can do, or that has happened in the past where people have manipulated the macro environment. Say again? How? Okay. When you have enough money and you buy Twitter, you can work with the conversations of people and also have that data. And then you can start build predictive models as well, because that's what they did. That's what companies did before that purchases. They mined Twitter data to make predictions of people's sentiments at election times and predict who will be the winners. If they know that in the USA or any country, they know who to butter up, who to lobby with, or who to network with, who to be friends with before they are there. Show your support for them, give them some money. And it looks like your money might them win or whatever. So there are ways to do that. The other one is if your company is critical in the ecosystem, I explained that yesterday, it is possible that if it fails, that it could cause macroeconomic problems. In the 1990s, there was a time when the world came close to a financial collapse. There was, I can't remember the company's name, but it was a US company, a financial company that was, there was something that went wrong there. And Warren Buffett went to the government. We talked about macroeconomic control. So he went to the government and said, you guys got to bail this company out. If you don't do that, this is what will happen. They listened to him, they bailed it out, but there was some fraud or something happening in that company. One person, again, a manager, actually committed fraud. No, it comes back to me. And that caused problems, macroeconomic problems, actually. And because of this, this intervention, by talking to someone, that risk was mitigated. So everybody can't do it, but some people can. If you've got enough money, you can. So it's got a major impact. The environment is defined by a variety of factors, and they can be categorized 6 groups. This is the PESTEL we spoke about yesterday. So there's PESTEL, political, stability, corruption, trade policy, all of that is political, the P. Then you've got E, which is economic growth, GDP. Those are the different factors, but there could be more. These are just examples. Every company, you would look at different factors in your PESTEL analysis. You would decide what's important. So, for example, you see population demographics. Sometimes not important. Lifestyle might be, so you will, and there might be more. Okay, technology innovation, that's on the T, automation, research and development, 4IR. There's weather under environmental. If you have a farm, weather is important. If you are the university, weather is not so much important. We have this, but weather can become important when it's flooded. Then it becomes important. So but it's not, it's lower on the priority list. And then the legal framework, employment legislation in South Africa is extremely important almost for every company. And because that puts a risk on companies. Consumer protection and all of those other things that, all the laws that also still will come out, like the POPI Act and all those things are important. So if they change, your business process might change. So imagine the POPI Act. When it came out, before that, people sent unsolicited emails. Then that thing said you are not allowed to send unsolicited emails. People continued because they didn't enforce the law. But some companies changed their business processes to make sure they only send emails to people who are subscribed, who wants to receive it. There's a school of thought that said, no, everybody wants to receive it. We don't want, we'll just force it down their throats. Then there's another school of thought that says, no, if someone actually gave you permission, so if I call an insurance company and say, look, give me a quote, I have given you permission to give me a quote. I didn't give you permission to call me 3 months down the line and keep on trying to win my business. You will get blocked. You see, so that is something. So how do they get my permission to give me a quote? By advertising, by paying Facebook for an ad or someone and making sure that I click on it because I am interested in insurance because I bought a car. Or they can tell me when I buy the car, they can have someone there where I buy the car. Then they don't have to irritate me because they waste my time. That's what they do. And that's the problem. So with many businesses, there's a business out there that used advertising more successfully. They will not try and call you. You say no, and then tomorrow they won't call you. They call new people. They don't have time to speak to irritate people who said no. I mean, it's stupid. It's like, why? Did you change your mind between today and tomorrow? No. Now we're going to talk about the 4 management functions. The first one is planning. So, planning is extremely important. Planning is a way to reduce risks. You will never get it right with planning. That's a bad part of it. But you will get it better other than if you didn't plan. So in other words, you plan to go to Cape Town. You're going to take the bus, the car, the bicycle, you're going to walk or you're going to fly. Those are the ways to get there. Your plan for each one of those will be different. So you choose the best one. Maybe you want to be there fast. So your plan is then to use an airplane. Okay? You can't take a boat. It's not going to get far. Unless if it's on a trailer. Okay? You're not going to take that. So there are some bad plans too. That is illogical. And people come with those. So that is a direction. But what we don't know is we take the road or the plane. We don't know if the plane, maybe they're going to ground it because maybe there's something small that fell off the wing. You don't want to fly in that anyway. Then your plan is messed up. So plans sometimes don't work out. But without the plan, even your best intentions will not be reached easily. Okay, so the plan is a way for you to utilize resources better. That's why it's so important. Now you can do resource allocation to the plan. You will say these are the activities and we will need to do this, and you put a budget to it and it makes the plan easier. For example, quoting for a complicated thing, if you're a consultant to do, you start with a plan. This is what we're going to do. Then you start costing things out and then you say, oh, this is what it will cost. So that gives us direction. Planning reduces the impact of uncertainty because we have, that's, I think, the main reason for a plan. So I don't know how I'm going to get to Cape Town. Okay, let's plan. How fast do I want to be? I think maybe tomorrow. Okay, cool. We can drive there over during the night, but it's only you, so it might be a bit more expensive. Maybe if your flight's cheaper. Okay, great. So I at least now know I'm gonna fly there. Are there flights available? Yes. Okay, let's execute the plan. We book the flight. Planning minimizes lost time, waste resources, and redundancy. Because without a plan, you might go all over the show. Planning is necessary for control because you can, against the plan, you can control the costs. So for complicated stuff, don't you think it's a good idea to compare it to have it? I think that's something that, if you look at the criticisms of some of the policies, let's take the NHI, that's a plan. National Health Insurance, that's a plan, isn't it? And the one thing that plan doesn't tell us is how much it will cost. Do you know that? That's a big mistake because now it becomes no longer a plan. So there's no ways that they can reduce that uncertainty of how much it will cost. The next question is, other people have now calculated, okay, this is what this plan will cost because it's important for the industry, it can disrupt the industry. So now there's uncertainty of where is this money going to come from? So they calculated, remember I spoke about tax earlier, that the tax needs to increase by 30%. By 30%. So you're gonna earn like almost nearly 30, just less than 30% less. How's that? So what will happen if that happens? There's a problem. South Africa's problem is not the tax per se. It is that we've got too few people who's got jobs who pay tax. That is the problem. Before you come with these plans, you've got to do step one first. Step one is get people employed so that those people work together to build up the economy. That's a better plan, isn't it? That will pay for everything else you desire because now you've got a larger tax base. Do you know that? I think about last year, we lost about, I speak under correction, about 700,000, something like that, taxpayers in this country. We only have about 7 million taxpayers, of which about 3 million pays 90% of the taxes collected. 3 million. That's 5% of the population pays 90% of all the taxes. You want that 5% to pay for this plan? I don't know if it's going to work. Those 5% people will find better opportunities elsewhere with better standard of living and might be needed elsewhere. The higher paid people are the scarce skills in this country. So that is a dangerous plan. Okay, it's ideological, but it's a problem with resources. But that's an example of a plan that I can guarantee you will not work. You might think it will work. That's your right to think about it. But I have not been convinced by clever people that it will work yet. That's the control. Then organizing. Once you've got a plan, you need to organize the resources for this plan. Okay? Very easy to understand. We've got a plan, now we need to organize the resources. So we're going to go to Cape Town. That's the plan. We need to organize some money. And we need to organize the suitcase. And we need to organize ourselves to get there. So that's when we start. You can't execute the plan without the organization or organizing it or the resources. Okay. So organizing is all about creating order and structure in a business environment. So let's take it to business. The 4 types of resources, we know what they are. This must be arranged to the allocated functions in order to execute the plan. Yeah, and then that needs to be controlled so that we can act, but we'll talk about control. Managers organize available resources by dividing their organization into different divisions, and that's something, there are different ways to divide up the organization. This talks only about the divisions, but there might be other structures, okay? Depending on what your strategy is and where you want to go. They do the following, they do this by following the two steps of differentiation. When human resources are divided such that each individual may have the opportunity to specialize or perform a specific task, and integration. So differentiation and integration. So bring together all the specialists, you know, who are specializing to make these things work. Bring that together, but basically organize your resources, money, like the capital, human resources, the physical resources could be your machinery or whatever, information. Now that's also a resource actually. And then of course, yeah, still organizing. I thought we went skipped control anyway. So allocation of responsibilities. The top-down approach from organizations say you need to part of organizing the organization is to allocate responsibility. So this person is responsible for that. But it's important about responsibility allocation is that you need to also control, allocate the power to execute the responsibility. So you've got to empower that person. So they need to have, for example, signing power over the budget to carry out their responsibility. I've seen organizations that don't do that because they feel they want centralized control, but a little bit of a dictator mindset. The problem is then they've got a manager, then they say to them, but why don't you employ people? The person say, I don't have money, a budget, where's the budget? Maybe we need, yeah, but employing people will find, you know, you can't work that way. So you can't delegate without delegating both the responsibility and the power. Accountability can then come because that person can be held accountable for the plan or the part of the plan that they are involved in because the resource was allocated to them. The budget being the resource is allocated to them. It's like you telling your husband or wife, buy me the airplane ticket, here's the money, I want to go to Cape Town. Okay, if they don't do it, you can hold them accountable. Okay, so establishing clear channels of communication, that's very important. That's what I mentioned earlier. You get these silos in your company and then they don't talk. And that delays everything. Then I need to bring in consultants to help them talk again. But this is critical. Without this, you don't have information flow. And without information flow, there's a problem. Information and knowledge flow. Resource deployment. Again, you need to deploy that meaningfully. That's where the budgets and part of planning comes in. The principle of synergy enhances the effectiveness and quality of the work performed. All business units, departments, sections, and individuals in an organization must work together to ensure the planned goals. You can't work together if you don't communicate. You have to communicate, but they have to do. You have to create that, environment. If you allocate resources like this, that these people talk. This is critical. It's also leadership. We spoke about leadership. It's also part of leadership to be able to do this. So, organizing is important because it clarifies who reports to whom in the organization, who's responsible for what, and also you can then hold them accountable for what you delegated to them or allocated to them. So if you allocated the budget, you hold them accountable. You need to spend it correctly. Problem with organizations, I don't really agree with this, that you need to spend your entire budget by the end of the year. People then start spending it, the budget becomes a target, and then they start spending it on nonsense because it has been allocated. they are going to be taken away the budget for next year. And that is the accountants push for that idea because they can allocate the money elsewhere. And the idea is that if you're not using the money, it was idling here, we could have made it work somewhere else, so we're taking it away. That is a dumb way to think about it. We need to think of other ways to do it. So look, reward innovation and reward saving money. So the question is, was all the goals achieved of this unit? Yes. That they use less for the same money. If less, then they overachieved. They were more productive. We spoke about product. They utilized less inputs. That's key. So if you utilize less inputs and you did your output, and one of the less inputs is a financial, you didn't spend all the budget, you should get a star. You should get a performance review that says, great. The money should be, not taken away then necessarily. It could be discussed how that can be utilized, but their argument is now it could have worked somewhere else. Well, it could have been wasted here. It is not wasted. And that is a key thing. Organizations haven't worked out how to actually think about that problem. So organizing is very important because we can actually see who has what and how then we can hold them accountable. Organizing also creates synergy since everyone knows what is their role and everybody else knows what they do. It enhances efficient resource deployment. Departmentalization is created where employees' activities are grouped together. So there's that's part of organization. So that's grouped together, but there's also I keep on telling you about, look, there's also the negative side of this that you need to manage. And then it also ensures coordination of results in activities taking place against this plan that we've got. So there are some basic elements of organizing. Organizing must be seen as an ongoing process through which managers create structure in organization and certainty. So it's part of we need some certainty. Through this structure, resources will be deployed and employees will perform all the tasks needed to work effectively to attain the vision and mission and so on. That's basically, if you look at organizing, it's just taking the resources, making sure it is where it needs to be in organization, and that people work with the resources in a way that you intend, which is part of the plan. We are going to talk about the control soon. Okay, so there are also the few basic elements of principles that manager must apply to be effective at organizing, and there's the specialization. There is now a move sort of away from specialization, I think, in the world, but we need to check that because of the rapid changes in technology. So technology changes so fast, people need to start to become generalists. So becoming a specialist is a bit of a, you shoot yourself in your own foot, actually, because it has worked in the USA quite well because the organizations were bigger and one person didn't need to do 3 different types of things. They could have a specialist just doing one thing the whole day. But now that you can automate much easier than someone who can do different things. So if there's a highly repetitive process, which is what they actually refer to here, this is at risk of automation now. So be careful. So I update you a little bit now. Just, you can argue this in your answers. Okay. Let's see how that works out. But you need to come with a good argument like the one I gave. I gave you the argument. Division of work brings you the specialization, actually. Centralization and decentralization. And so I referred to centralization before. So centralization is where you've got a single person sort of making all the decisions and having all the control. Decentralization is where more than one person have or unit have those controls. Authority, again, you give certain people authority then, so that they manage, and then there's a chain of command. Chain of command is this person report to whom and so on. And then the span of control is how many people report to this person. So a good span of control normally is about 6 to 8 people to a manager. If it becomes more, they battle to manage properly. Coordination, of course, needs to coordinate between all of the people reporting to you. So, well, I went through all the detail already. I'm not going to do that again. So there's your specialization. You know what that is. I spoke about that. Division of work, centralization, decentralization, and you will see these disadvantages and drawbacks and things like that as well. I did explain all of this between yesterday and today, but mostly today. Authority, yeah, line of authority, staff authority, line and staff authority. So you get different types here. So the direct line, that's your line of authority, staff authority. This is the authority in middle management. It's the right of one manager to advise, but not to command another employee who is not subordinate to him. So that means that this is my unit and there's another. I can advise, but I can't command that he's got his own manager that will do that. You can't break it. The moment you do that, you create a problem with the organization. So be careful of that. Line and staff authority, this authority is found in combined partnership between line managers and staff managers. Line departments need the support of staff departments to be successful. And activities that take place in manufacturing and marketing are classified under line functions. Yeah, so so your support functions are like HR and all those. That supports the organization, and you get your line functions. Delegation of authority. This takes place when a manager who is normally responsible for a task assigns a direct authority to someone else instead. Okay. And this creates congruence by integrating goals and tasks throughout the organization. And the subordinate must have the same necessary tools. Now, remember, you can't delegate without delegating the responsibility as well as the control, well, the ability, the means for that person, the resources for them to do that. Okay. So there is the responsibility, accountability. You always, when you delegate something, you always need to also delegate that accountability as well, but also the resources. Delegation of authority, some guidelines to follow for effective delegation. So we set SMART goals and objectives that subordinates support and understand the goals and their role in achieving them. So SMART is just a simple way to make measurable goals that you can actually execute. Be clear about the level of authority and responsibility assigned to the subordinate. That's important. You don't want to make them, remember what I said. So if you assign it to them, you need to explain exactly what did you assign to them. So for example, you're allowed to sign off people's leave, vacation leave. Now someone comes with sick leave and sign, no, that was not, for example, but you can do that. But you have to be specific, and then if that person does the wrong thing, then they are in breach of their authority. Involve the subordinate in decision-making and daily activities. That also helps to train them so that they can one day do succession. So remember, as a manager, you want to move up. If you don't train the next manager up, you can't move up in an organization. You need to make yourself redundant. And people don't get that also. So train our subordinates to empower themselves with the skill and knowledge to take responsibility and give regular and accurate feedbacks That's the coaching part that we spoke about in terms of leadership, when you give feedback and things like that, more a leadership thing as well. The chain of command refers to who reports to whom. We spoke about that. So it's basically, if you look at your organization structure, chain of command, and then how the authority and power in organization exerted and delegated from top management to the lower levels. This also gives you the role of people and what their responsibilities are, who reports to whom. So organizations like 3,000, 30,000 staff, whatever, this is important. You will not know 30,000 people. So if you know, I need to speak to the manager of department XYZ, then look at that thing, okay, there's the person, oh, they sit there, cool, they've got these people reporting to them. Oh, okay, so that is almost like a map of the organization. So that's what we refer to here. So the concept of unity of command, that is, each employee should have only one immediate supervisor. It's very difficult and challenging for people if they've got two people report, and that happens. If we talk about the matrix structure, you don't have unity of command there. That actually breaks this one, because you will have this manager and this one here. On this, say, for example, yes, your function, you're maybe in HR, okay? But now HR is a project that runs through the entire organization here, and there is a project that you run, and the project manager comes from somewhere else, but you've got this manager now and the project manager. That happens. Then you don't have any more unity of command. To manage that as an employee takes some self-leadership. Okay, so there's also these basic elements of organizing, or the span of control, of course. I did explain to the span of control about 6 to 8 people to a manager. So the larger the data, the more efficient, cost-effective organization will be, because then you need to, if it's small, like 1313, you need 2 managers which have salaries versus 1 to 6 or 8. So that makes more sense if it's wider for organization, it's more cost-effective. But if it's too wide, it becomes a problem for the manager to manage, and then things can go wrong. Okay? So the type of work that takes place in the organization will determine the span of control. So 5 key factors that will influence the span of control are these things: the competence of the managers and employees. So if the competence are low, you will have lower span of control. Yeah. The complexity of tasks being supervised, again, low complexity, you can have a wider and high complexity could be narrower. The frequency of new problems in the manager's department and the skills that they need in order to solve that can, talks to complexity. And then the clarity of procedures, rules, and standards. If that's not clear, we narrow it. So clarify that as soon as possible. The complexity of the subordinate's job, which is a little bit higher upset anyway. So then coordination. This takes place to integrate the different tasks and that help achieve the primary objectives of the organization. Coordination creates congruence by integrating goals and tasks throughout the organization. Departments need to share resources and information between them, and also work together to achieve the organization goals. This is very critical. So, for example, if the finance department doesn't talk to the production environment or department or function, they don't know what they need, and they may well finance the wrong stuff. The same with marketing, and I gave you those examples yesterday. They're exactly those examples, as that's what can go wrong. Today in organizations, this is real. So I went to an organization, these guys don't talk, they don't have information, so a project that should have taken them a day is taking them months, because they don't talk. They didn't figure it out, they actually have to talk. Quite simple. The greater the interdependence between departments, the more important effective coordination will be. And coordination is needed to ensure that all the parties work to each other's strengths and stay focused on the vision and the mission of the organization. So these are the four factors, these are the factors that influence organizational structure. Those factors is how you must work together. The important structure follows strategy. Okay, that's very important. So you, depending on your strategy, the structure might be different. So if an organization changes their strategy, they might need to rearrange, reorganize the company, have a different structure. So when you talk about structures, how it's organized, slow with organizing the company. Then an organization's direction will also determine the type of structure. So you've got your size and structure, the bigger, the more complex it is to manage. Technology and structure, technology can influence it. Environmental uncertainty and structure, again, there is some external influences that can influence it, and then communication and structure. So if it's complicated, it makes the communication difficult between employees. So you get different organizational designs, simple or departmentalization. Under departmentalization, you've got your functional departmentalization, like the original example I gave you is you've got finance, marketing, operations, all of those are functional departmentalization. Okay. This is often used almost like the default one. You can have product departmentalization. So it could be product based. So the product, but with that, you might still have your support functions as separate functions, but then you could have products. So insurance companies have the product one, commercial, personal, but they also have something else. Claims is different from a functional perspective. So they've got process, and then they've got product. Okay. And then customer departmentalization. This is if you don't want your customers or their information to be mixed with each other. So when I was like a student, I was still in school actually. I worked at a company. I was just 17 years old or something like that. And I found it extremely interesting. I learned a lot there. I had to do data capturing, some stupid job like that, capture data. Okay. Yeah, it was. But I learned a lot from that. That's why I said it's a stupid job, but I learned a lot. It is repetitive work, and I hate repetitive work. Or a simple job. It's not like complicated. The thing that I learned there is that they did market research for car companies. They still exist today. They do market research. And when you get into the building and you work for Ford, you don't work for Ford, but you work on Ford stuff. You will never see, when you enter the building, you will never see any other badge. You will only see Ford. They departmentalize that company around customers. So if you are their client, you are Ford, or you are BMW. Do you think the BMW client wants to see Mercedes is also, there's a guy working on Mercedes stuff, there's a guy working on that, they don't want to do that. So there's a very good reason then for that, to have your customer departmentalization, with that. So that makes sense, you see. Also, there are other reasons also that could make sense, but this is a very good reason. Geographic departmentalization. If you need to be close to the customers geographically, this makes sense again. This could also be country. So it's just a physical reason for that you would use geographic departmentalization. It would be physical. It could be physical to customer. In other words, the customer is close, or it could be because you have a specific resource. That's where the resource is, like mines. They would be in this country, that mine, whatever. And that would be a department, or it will be a specific unit, specialized unit for that. Matrix departmentalization is this, like a table. So it's got your columns, The columns would be like, could be finance, you know, all the functions, or could be even whatever organizational design we have already mentioned, could be geographic or whatever. And then across like this, you would have other things. So it could be like this, you could have geographic and across product like this. But also could be a matrix structure. Matrix structure normally also say you report to two people sometimes. Team-based, this is a new thing, or it was new a couple of years back. So team-based structure is where you organize the company into teams. Teams do things. So consulting companies are normally organized in team-based. Then those teams will have different skills in a team. So if they need to, they run a project, then they put the team together, and then that team works there. That's how they do it. Boundaryless structure, again, this is a virtual office or remote work thing. You know quite well after COVID how that works. There's no physical boundaries there. You can have people anywhere in the world. So our talent pool there is anywhere. And this takes us to control. You need a break. See you in 5 minutes time. And don't leave. I need a quick breather myself. So we will be back at about 7:25. Okay, so we have a recording in progress. Guys, okay, control. So we just completed organizing, and we spoke about quite a lot of stuff there, including how you organize it in terms of the structuring of the organization. There are different ways of doing that depending on strategy. Before that, we did planning. So, and before you do the planning, you strategize. It's actually part of the planning process. But what we also did is from strategy follow structure. Okay, then we are implementing. Okay, so part of the organizing is actually the first part of implementation. Then we need to control what we are implementing. We need to control costs. We need to control the resources, basically. We need to make sure that people do what they are supposed to do. That is what control is all about. There are different ways to control. But one thing that you need to remember is if you don't measure it, you can't control it. If you don't measure it, actually the right way of saying it, if you don't measure it, you can't manage it. You're a manager. If you don't measure it, you can't manage. This is where control comes in. So how do you control if you are making defects in a business? How do you control that? If there's, you know, you produce goods, but half of it you produce is rejects. How do you control that? You control that to put measurements in place all over the production process to find out where's the problem, and before you produce too much of the bad thing, that you can fix the problem at that point in time when it starts happening. Then you reduce your wastage. But control involves a systemic process, okay, through which managers can compare the real performance of activities against your plan, your standards, and even your objectives. Remember, we start this, our plans are based on those standards and objectives. We take then corrective action if they deviate. So it is a regulatory task for management, and it allows action to tie in with plans. That's control. Control also bridges the gap between the formation of objectives during the planning process and the achievement of these objectives. Control ensures that activities are performed as they should be. Okay? Now, that means that the resources you have deployed, the people and technology and so on, are actually executing the plan and it's going according to plan. The control process informs the manager that activities are proceeding according to plan or the existing plan should be continued. That's an important thing. The plan might be wrong. So the controls also need to tell us whether we are on the right path. So the plan was to go to Cape Town, but maybe you shouldn't have gone to Cape Town. And we need to have a way to turn around if we're going the wrong way, or if the plan was wrong. Okay. So the second one is activities are not proceeding according to plan. So the existing plan should be adjusted, or now that plan needs to be adjusted because in order to, you need to make a new plan because you've gone off track. You need to make a new plan so to get back on track. So this is like going to Cape Town via Bloemfontein, but somehow you're in Nelspruit. You with me? Which is not that way. So you need to figure out a new plan because now you need to go from that point to where you want to be. It's going to be a bit more expensive, but that's where you are. So the whole situation has changed. That's the external factors we spoke about. Remember, macro environment changed, and that's a big problem in today. The fast innovation that happens is that changes the situation. So we need to come up with a new plan. So that's where agility comes in. So all of these things needs to be agile so that your plan, you get to the destination as fast as possible with the least amount of mistakes, and so that you can start getting the benefit before things change. That's the moving window of opportunities. Where is the mouse? There we go. So why is control so important? I think the previous slide said quite a lot about that. So control determines how efficiently the organization is using our resources. Okay, because if we go the wrong direction, we need to reutilize, we need to add more resources to get to where we want to be. And how do you explain that to your manager? You know, organizational control gives managers feedback on product quality, for example. That's one example. Managers must ensure that their organizations are responsive to customers. And then that is where we need to make sure what we produce is what customers want. That's what that basically says. And control can raise the level of innovation. It can do that because if things goes wrong, it's a problem solved, that's innovation. Control enables management to cope with change and uncertainty. Very important, this one. Because remember what I said to you, is that the higher you go up in the organization, the more abstract it becomes, the more complex your environment becomes. So you have to deal with more complexity. And you might, as a supervisor, not have so many plans. But when you go up there, the plans are even complicated. And you can't deal. So if someone asks you, okay, yes, we've got this whole project. We need to open up a plant in Zimbabwe. And you say, yeah, has anybody else opened up a plant like this in Zimbabwe? No, but we're going to be the first. We need to be there, the first one. Yeah, but yes, there's so many things to consider now. You need to consider about how they deal with the government. You may need to bribe. I don't know. You might need to do stuff. That makes it complicated. You see. But if you're lower down, that guy figured it out and said, look, we have opened a plant. So all you need to do is run the operation over there. Here's your plans. We do the same. Or yes, how we do the plans. So supervisory level will be easier in that example. Control is important to remain competitive and sustain, the competitive position you've got. Control facilitates delegation and teamwork. And then there are three approaches to control. Market control, bureaucratic control, and plan control. Market control emphasizes use of external market mechanisms such as price competition, and relative market share. So do you see, we are talking about the stuff that top management will do. They will look at, the pricing and things like that to establish the standards used in the control system. And those pricing, you need to know that you actually make a profit per product and things like that. This is critical, what I'm saying. There are large companies running today that don't even know how much it costs them to manufacture a product or service. This is costing and estimating. Did any of you do that? Costing and estimating? You've done that. So there are that is undergraduate work. There are companies that haven't done, that don't have those things in place, and they run. They run not efficiently, because if they know that certain products might be not competitive, they might make a loss. You might just stop making that product, or find out what's wrong and fix it. Okay, that's one thing. Bureaucratic control emphasizes organizational authority and relies on administrative rules, regulations, reward systems, procedures, policies to influence employee behavior and to assess organizational performance. Remember, I spoke about bureaucracy and explained to you that reduces agility in organization. So you want to keep this as low as possible to keep certain things, the basics in place, so that you have those control systems. Don't over control. The university has something like 1,600 different policies. Do you think we can remember everything? So that makes things move slowly, because now we need to first check the policy. Plan control represents almost the opposite of bureaucratic control, because it relies on values, beliefs, traditions, rituals, corporate culture, shared norms, and informal relationships to regulate employee behavior and facilitate the reaching of organizational goals. You've used leadership here as well to get that to work. So this requires trust. Employees are given minimal direction, and it is assumed that they will perform well. So it's almost like, there's another theory about that, laissez-faire, where you just let them do the work, but that only works if those people are capable and willing. You recruited the right people, kind of thing. Otherwise, you can't. It really doesn't work. Then you've got strategic control. This is a process of evaluating the strategy is practiced both after the strategy is formulated and after it is implemented. Okay. Management control are those functions within the framework established by the strategy. Remember, we spoke about organizing, that it's about that. The typical management control measures the quality, cost, and so on. Return on investment, very important, because you see, return on investment you can actually measure per product or per unit. So that's important things to understand. But not many companies do that, because it becomes a bit, not everybody knows how to do that. So operational control is designed to ensure that the day-to-day activities are consistent with the established plans and objectives. When I gave an example of the supervisor that plans how the production process needs to run, production schedule, then that is what they do. That's operational control. So 3 basic forms of control. That's feed-forward control, steering or concurrent control, and then post-control feedback control. Feed-forward, that's also called preliminary control, pre-control, or preventative control. This is the most desirable form because it aims at preventing anticipated problems and tasks, takes place before activities or projects get underway. So this happens before the time, it's almost like predictive. Then steering and concurrent control is as things happen, and then post is after you check with the outcome. The problem sometimes is then the mistakes have been made. So it's more difficult to, well, it's more costly to fix your mistakes here than when you have this in place. The problem with this is you do not have the information yet. So there's that problem. With artificial intelligence, we can implement a lot more of this now because they can do predictive analytics quickly. The areas of control. What should be controlled? We need to ask those questions with our strategy and when we organize what really needs to be controlled. You can control everything. You can be a control freak, but is it going to work? You don't want to control too much because then that would be a problem. So you need to control the necessary things. Sometimes if you control this, it will tell you if anything here is wrong. So there might be different causes that gives you this number. So for example, if you're at a top level, they look at, for example, that they will not look at production numbers at the bottom. They will say, okay, just tell me 2 numbers, maybe, or 1. How many products have been produced correctly and how much waste did you produce? And if those things are out, what is the percentage of waste? That's all they need to know. You don't need to know about this machine and that machine. This is supervisory stuff. This is production or process engineer stuff. Okay? So that's what should be controlled and where and who. Okay? The organization activity should be controlled at strategic control points. Again, that is dependent on your plan and also the cost of control. These strategic control points can be financial situation. That is like, can be monthly or weekly even, or quarterly account. Productivity, that is output over input. Competitive position, human resources, technological leadership, and public responsibility, the SGD goals. So what are the control processes?
Yes, I see the slide before this one.
Yes, you can. There we go. Oops, this one. Is this the one? Okay. Right, so there are the control process. First, establish your performance standards, measure the actual performance, evaluate the implementation, and take corrective action. This is the control or the feedback loop system. So here you get the control process, set the performance standards, measure, compare. It's great if nothing goes wrong. If something is not right, come back and repeat. Yes. Must I go back to the previous slide? Okay, the next slide is a picture of this. It's the same thing. These two are the same. Say again. Yeah, it's the same thing. 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. If nothing is wrong, if something is wrong, we come back. So this one is more important than this slide. Okay. You got that? Okay. So there's step 1 of that same picture. Establish the performance standards. How do we do that? Performance standards are a prediction of expected or planned performance. Goals and objectives are developed during the planning process. Remember, I explained that. So we want to measure that. And then there are 4 types of performance standards: profit standards, market share standards, productivity standards, and human resource standards. If you look at this, money, customers, production, and then the people that work in the organization. So there are 4 types, okay? So this could be, for example, rates of staff turnover, absenteeism, years later. In productivity standards, what outputs are expected? For example, output over input is also one. And then what market share the organization is aiming to achieve, that could be a measure, but that's more like top management. Profit standards, how much profit the organization wants to make out of this whole thing. Step 2, measure-based performance. Actual performance can be measured in physical, quantitative, and or qualitative terms. That's important. 5 aspects of the actual performance that can be managed and controlled, or quantity, quality, time, cost, and behavior. A difficult step, managers need to know what is measure, how to measure, and when to measure. The organization must also determine how much deviation from targets will be acceptable. What is the tolerance variance? And one approach that a manager can use to measure and evaluate real performance is management by walking around in BWA. So you've got to see, right? And then evaluate the deviations. So if there's deviations, we want to know why they happen. The variance, what's happening with the variance? Why are they there? So you need to go and investigate. So the actual performance, you compare that. So the standard is what you planned. Then you get the actual, you've got to see, okay, there's a difference. Why is this difference there? That's a very good question. And then the principle of control by exception comes to play. So in other words, you don't control things that goes wrong. You control things, you find out, you are only alerted of things that goes wrong. Okay? So if there's a variance, you want to know. The other thing's fine. You don't want to know about that. You want, that's the management by exception. The nature and scale of deviation and their causes must be determined. Like we need to know why is that variation there. And then some deviations from the standard may be justified because of changes in environmental conditions. So maybe you can explain that there's something else external happening here, but we first try to find out if it is really the case, because we can blame many other things. And then we don't have to do something about it. But the moment that there's an external issue that causes a deviation from a plan, you might want to adjust the plan. So there is always some work to do irrespective. Make sure you do the right thing, identify the right thing, and don't just stop there with the environment conditions. So the following is then a checklist that you can follow, and there are, this is where it starts. Are the standards appropriate for the stated objectives and plans? So must we revise the standards? Are the objectives and corresponding plans still appropriate, considering the current economic environmental situation? And then are the plans for achieving this, the objectives, are they still applicable? Are the organization structure systems, are that correct? Are the activities being executed appropriate for achieving these standards? That takes us to the corrective action. So we now know what's wrong. Now we can go and fix it. So we can only do that when we know what's wrong. So, so at this point, we know what's wrong. Now we need to decide how we're going to fix this problem. Now, it's therefore necessary to find out, is it really necessary to do anything? Okay. Maintaining the status quo can happen. You can decide that. That's one of the things that you can decide, because if there might be a reason for that. Or you need to maybe change something. Maybe the standards or what you measure against, maybe the measure is wrong or whatever. Whatever was wrong, you've got to fix it. The performance standards will have to be lowered maybe, or raised to make them more realistic to the circumstances, or go and fix the problem, basically. So what is an effective control system? It's one that integrates well so that you can get information fast. Understand and simplicity, it's got to be not complicated. It needs to be flexible. It needs to be accurate. it needs to be fast, timeless. So you've gotta not wait a month to know, you've got to get it faster. It needs to be acceptable and it needs to be of strategic importance, doesn't have to measure stuff that's not part of the plan. And there could be multiple criteria that you want to measure. So when do we control? We can control in different ways or different frequencies. So they can constant control, that can be on a system or a process. That self-control, plan control, standing plans can do that. Periodic control can be like regular reports, weekly, maybe daily. What did you do today? Can be a question to staff that does office work. That's daily control, or it could be weekly. So controls are therefore, you need to decide what is the right frequency. Because if it's too frequent, you might find that you work more on a control than on actually doing the work. That's a bad thing. So a regular report, budget audits can be quite, that's example of frequency. Occasional control, so that could be observation, special reports, that could be ad hoc stuff that you do. That's not necessarily either constant or periodical. So there are contingency factors in control. The contingency factors are those that influence the design of the organization's control system. This could be if the organization grow in size. Sorry about that. It grows in size and level in hierarchy. Might be the levels of in organization could be tall or so, depending on that. If it's tall, it might change the controls. The degree of decentralization controls they will also look different than in a centralized structure. And then organizational culture can also affect whether you control certain things or not as well, or what you control. And then and how important the specific activity is. Even activity costs money, it's not an important thing to control. But if you don't have to control everything, you need to just find those specific points that will really tell you what's going on in the company. And different levels in your hierarchy will look at different things and different frequencies of controls. Okay. So you as a supervisor will look at, or if you're a supervisor, you will look at higher frequency controls and also probably more detailed stuff. Your manager will just want to know the output is that are you basically managing what you need to manage, and so it goes upwards. Okay, workplace privacy. That's an important thing when we look at controls, because if we put, there's a company, I think, that showed that they can use AI and video cameras, and then they can, by looking at the camera will look at and warn when someone is not working. How do you like that? So they sit in the office and then it will show these guys are not working, those are working, so red and green, and then people can do something about it. You know that. But now that I have a question about privacy, for example. You know, employee theft. Employee theft is fine as in, you know, employees steal stuff or use company property for their own use. Workplace violence is again violence, a threat of violence against another employee. You know, inside or outside. So maybe if you're a manager and you don't know how to lead, you might engage in employee violence. So please don't do that. Be good leaders. Okay. So these are just some contemporary issues that are affecting control. And then, yeah, there's another one. Workplace violence can include threatening behavior, verbal or written threats, harassment, verbal abuse, all those kind of things. This is just contemporary stuff that, and load shedding. Okay, I see that the people are still online at least. but we are not online. But this is also the last slide. We just made it, actually.
Thanks,
We just made it, actually.
thanks.
Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, that was the last slide. There was just a summary slide which disappeared from my computer now. So, yeah, thank you for that. I think, let's call it a night. Oh, there we go.